Hey guys, welcome back to Sparkman Homestead. My name is Krista. I'm in a different spot. I'm actually in my office. I'm just doing a little bit of editing and I realized that I did not film an intro to this video. This video is a kind of a mix of different meals that I have been making this last week. We are in the month of June and Jessica over at the Three Rivers Homestead has started a new pantry challenge for the month of June, which I really wanted to participate in because I always enjoy a good challenge, especially when it comes to eating stuff that I have preserved and put up. However, because we are in the month of June, this is actually the month that I put up all of my berries and stuff for the upcoming year. So I decided that I'm going to do the pantry challenge, but I'm actually going to kind of do it very loosely. I'm giving myself an enormous amount of slack. So I'm probably gonna participate about 50% in it. Again, because we are in the berry season, I want to be able to purchase stuff from my local you pick farms and my local Amish of stuff that I don't have the capability to grow myself that I always put up for the year. This is jam making time for me. This is the time that I get all my frozen berries put into the freezer for the upcoming year. And I save a substantial amount of money by purchasing things when they are in season and by going to You Pick Farms. I can save hundreds of dollars just by picking my stuff myself when it is in season. So I don't want to lose the ability to do that. So I'm still going to do that. I'm giving myself the ability to still purchase my dairy products. I don't have a milk cow. I don't see myself, unfortunately, getting one anytime soon. Even though I really want one, it's not in my cards right now. So I'm still giving myself the ability to purchase dairy. And the other thing that I'm also kind of giving myself slack with is my Azure orders. If you've seen my last video, I can leave it linked up here for you or in the description. I did get an Azure order in the month of June, and it is because we are in an extremely, I cannot stress the word extreme enough, tight budget, especially with our groceries. So because we have such a tight budget, the way that I make sure that our pantry stays well stocked and the way that I make sure that we always have food for the upcoming year is I buy my stuff in little increments. I allow a little flexibility in my budget. I have a little part of it that I reserve for stocking up or for putting up. Also this month we have our meat order coming in for the year, so I want to make sure that that is still made available. We made those agreements months and months ago. We purchased half of a cow and that is coming this month. So that's the other reason why I can't fully participate in it. But anyways, that's a long explanation. I am going to be participating in it again loosely. So the video that you are about to see is what I have prepared for the last week. I also want to let you know right now, because my kids are not with us right now. They are still but one of my son is still at school and my daughter is actually, she has a full-time job, so she can't just leave. So they're not here right now. They are coming this summer, but they're not here right now. So all of the meals that you see, I make our meals for Steven and I. Steven is my husband. So all of our meals are made for just the two adults. However, I always make excess, and that's just that is the mom in me because I'm so used to making huge meals. What we do is with our leftovers that we have, that is our lunch the upcoming day. So Steven has food to take to work with him, and then I have food here that I can eat while I am working at home. So just to let you know, I don't cook huge ginormous meals, but you can definitely tweak the recipes to the size that you need for your family. I will leave a description for all of the recipes that I am using a recipe for. A lot of these recipes that I actually made on this video, I just kind of, and I've been doing this more and more lately, is I am just taking a recipe that I find on Pinterest and I am tweaking it to how it works for me. The base, I am using kind of the base of the recipe, and then I'm just taking it from there and just making it work for what I have in my pantry and for what we prefer to eat. So some of these recipes, unfortunately, I don't have anything to link for you. I do try to make an effort and kind of give you the measurements or what I'm thinking I'm using in it, because sometimes I just pour until it looks good. So I'm trying to be more consciously aware and giving you guys the measurements for that. But like I said, I will link anything that has a linkable recipe. It will be linked for you in the video descriptions. Hope you enjoy the video. For supper tonight, I am making a country fried pork with white gravy. This is a super delicious meal, and it comes together depending on the thickness of your pork chops or pork loin. It can come together in about 30 minutes. So it's a super quick meal to make on a busy night. What I'm doing here is just in a pie plate, I added about 2.5 cups of just a plain all-purpose flour. And then I added some cayenne pepper, salt, and pepper just to taste. I'm just whisking it up good just to make sure that it is evenly combined. And then in a second pie plate, I just took 2 eggs and beat them up a little bit. And then I'm just gonna whisk in about 1.5 cups of whole milk. Just wanna make sure that's good and combined. And then I am going to take 4 pork chops here. Now these are a pretty thick cut of pork chop. They're actually probably too thick for what I needed them to be. And they had a lot of fat on them here. So I'm just cutting off some of that excess fat and just tenderizing them a little bit. I needed to get them a lot thinner than what they were so that they could take a lot less time to cook. So I'm just tenderizing them here and just making sure that they're good and flat. And I'm just taking some salt and pepper and just seasoning them on both sides. Once I got them good and seasoned, I am going to bread them now. So what I did to bread them is I just took them, put them into the egg mixture, and then moved them over to the flour mixture, then back into the egg mixture and back into the flour mixture. I just really wanted to get them good and coated so that they had a nice thick breading on them. Once I got them all breaded up, I just put them on a platter and set them aside. I really wanted that breading to kind of have some time just to sit and get good and combined. So while they were resting, I made up my white gravy. And what I did is I just took a medium saucepan and put 4 tablespoons of butter in there. And I just put that on about medium heat, like medium-low heat. Melted that butter up, and then I added a 1/4 cup of just all-purpose flour, some cayenne pepper to taste, and then again salt and pepper to taste. And I'm just whisking that up just to kind of get that raw flour taste off. I was kind of looking for that nutty smell. So you can see here it got good and brown. And now I am slowly whisking in 2 cups of whole milk. I'm just gonna whisk this until it is a good thick gravy consistency. It turned out really, really delicious. So I took my large cast iron skillet and I added about 2 tablespoons of avocado oil. I probably added a little bit too much avocado oil to this because I did unfortunately burn some of the pork chops. Now again, because these were a thicker pork chop, they took a lot longer to cook. The original recipe says that you should really only cook them 2 to 3 minutes per side. Mine took probably about 10 minutes because I was trying to get the pink off of them. So once they were good and cooked, I took them out of the cast iron and just placed them on this plate that had a paper towel on it just to get some of that excess oil off of them. I took a can of carrots from our pantry and just heated those up in the microwave. And then I topped those pork chops with that white gravy and then just put some of these canned carrots beside. And it was a delicious hearty supper. So we had actually gone raspberry picking this day, and I thought a perfect dessert would be to have some fresh raspberries with whipped cream on top. So what I did is I just took some heavy whipping cream and added about a teaspoon of just regular organic cane sugar, and I'm just beating that until I get soft peaks. Once I got that to the consistency that I wanted, I just took some of our fresh picked raspberries and put them in a bowl and then topped that with that whipped cream. And then I had some extra Oreos left over and I just crumbled those on top, and it was perfect dessert. So the next day for lunch, I was craving something really fresh, and I had actually just recently harvested a whole bunch of stuff from my garden. So I thought that this recipe would be perfect to make for lunch that day. I found a recipe online for this Asian salad, but it called for a couple of things that I actually didn't have, and I really wanted to kind of incorporate the things that I had just harvested from the garden, because we're really trying to just eat fresh and eat what we have available in the house. So I tweaked the recipe a little bit. So what I was doing at the very beginning there is I had a package of rice noodles, and rice noodles are super easy to cook. All you have to do is just soak them in some boiling water for about 15 minutes, and then all you do is just drain them off when they are good and like tender. So I was just grating up a purple kohlrabi there, and just grating a carrot, and just shredding some of the cabbage. And the recipe called for a green onion. I don't actually have any green onions, or I think scallions is another name for them. I don't have any, but what I do have is a lot of onions in my garden. So I just went outside and just harvested one of my onion tops and just cut that up into the salad. Yesterday I had actually harvested all of my peas, and so I hadn't put them in the freezer yet, so I just put some of them in the salad. It was a really nice touch to it. And I went out and also harvested a couple of my broccoli shoots. Our broccolis are pretty much all done here, but what a really cool thing what they do is they actually send off side shoots. So I was able to go and harvest a couple of those side shoots, and I just cut them up and put them into that salad. Gave it a good little stir. So what I'm doing right now is just kind of making my version of an Asian dressing to go on top of this salad. So I took half a cup of avocado oil and half a cup of rice vinegar, and what I'm doing right now is just grating up some fresh frozen ginger into this bowl here. I freeze my ginger because it makes it really easy to grate in situations like this. And then I added about a teaspoon of minced garlic, and what I'm doing right there is just adding about 4 teaspoons of toasted sesame oil and approximately 1 tablespoon of honey. I just kind of do it to taste. And I just sprinkled a little bit of red pepper flakes into there and some salt and pepper to taste. Just whisked it all up. I did actually give it a taste test, and I had to actually go back and add some salt to it. It wasn't salty enough, but I think if I would have added some type of like soy sauce or coconut aminos, it would have added a little bit more umami flavor, which I think it was kind of missing. So maybe next time I make it, I will try to incorporate some of that. So what I'm doing here is just adding those tender rice noodles to here and just giving it a good mix. Unfortunately, some of my kohlrabi didn't get incorporated and it was all clumped at the bottom, so I'm just kind of working that into the salad, and just I'm pouring the dressing over top and just getting it incorporated. This salad was such a fresh, like really refreshing salad, and as you can see there, it makes a lot. So this was a perfect lunch, and I'm happy that I have a lot for lunch tomorrow also. For supper on this night, I wanted to try a new recipe that I'd actually found on Pinterest called 5-ingredient ground beef casserole. And what I'm doing right here is I just took 2 pounds of thawed out ground beef, and I'm just getting it good and crumbled up. Once I get it all cooked and crumbled up, I'm just gonna add it to a strainer and get some of that excess grease off of it. It was pretty greasy kind of meat. You could probably use like a ground chicken or a ground turkey in this recipe. It'd probably be pretty interchangeable. I would maybe just add a little bit of cooking fat to it because I know that those are pretty lean cuts of meat. Now I'm adding a can here, or my jar of homemade cream of mushroom soup. It is so easy to make, and I love any recipe that I can just kind of quickly get this made. I made these up the previous night so that I had them all ready when I wanted to make this supper. Now this recipe looked really appealing to me because I got to experiment with making my own cream of cheddar cheese soup. That's it right there. Now if you use a orange cheese, your soup mix will obviously get orange, but I used a white cheese, so that's why mine is white. So I'm just getting it good and incorporated here. Now this recipe calls for 3 cups of cubed frozen potatoes. I had a bag of pretty freezer burnt hash browns, and then I found a little bag of cubed frozen potatoes that I had in the freezer, so I just added that all in, and then there I was adding half a cup of shredded cheddar cheese and just some salt and pepper to taste. Definitely when we went to go and eat it, I realized I did not put enough salt in it, so you kind of have to heavily salt this because I did not salt the beef when I was actually browning it up. So I just have a 9x13 casserole dish here, and I'm just giving it a nice little coating of grease, and I'm just gonna get all of that cooked meat into that casserole dish and just kind of squish down. And I'm gonna add on top of it half a cup of shredded cheddar cheese again, and I'm just gonna cover this with foil and put it into the oven for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, I'm going to come and remove the foil from the casserole, and I'm going to put it back into the oven for another 30 minutes just to make sure that it is good and fully cooked. Now, this recipe turned out okay. Both me and Steven both agreed that it was missing something. We said that it probably needed to have maybe some cooked carrots in it, or maybe like broccoli or something, but it was definitely lacking something. It was an okay recipe. I don't know if I would necessarily make it again, but it was super quick and easy to make. And then I also took a can of our canned corn there, and just we had that on the side. So definitely a very economical meal to make, and it does serve quite a bit, but again, it was kind of lacking something in it, but we enjoyed it. For dessert the next night, I wanted to get some puff pastry used up that I'd actually found in my freezer, and I didn't want it to go freezer burn. So I looked for a recipe online, and I found this perfect recipe. It is for a strawberry strudel, and it actually uses some jam, which is perfect because I had just made a whole bunch of jam this day, and I needed to get some of my old stuff used up. So what I'm doing here is I'm just taking a package of puff pastry, so there's 2 sheets in total, and I'm just cutting it to size there. You can make these whatever size you want to make them. I wanted to kind of make them a medium size. So what I was doing right there was just getting an egg wash made. I just took 1 egg and mixed it with 1 tablespoon of water and just beat it up. Now I am taking the puff pastry and just laying them out flat there, and then you are supposed to put 1 tablespoon of jam in it, and as you can see, I definitely put way too much, and I got some spillage. So make sure that you don't overfill the center because it will definitely leak over, and it causes the sides not to seal really good. So I'm just putting approximately 1 tablespoon of jam in the center there, and I'm just folding it over one way and then folding it over the next way, and then I am putting it seam side down onto a lined cookie sheet. You definitely want to make sure you're using a lined sheet because it does spill over. So now I'm just cutting a couple of little air vents into them just so that the steam can escape, and then I'm gonna come and put some of that egg wash on top of it. It makes them nice and brown by adding the egg wash, and again, overfilled it there. And then once I get that egg wash all on all of them, I'm gonna come and actually sprinkle just some plain white sugar on it. The recipe does recommend using is sanding sugar. I don't have that, so I just used an organic cane sugar here, and it worked perfect. So I'm gonna put these into a 400-degree oven and cook them for about 20 minutes. And then once they are cooked, you just kind of want to let them cool a little bit because the jam inside does get super hot. But these turned out really delicious. Despite the complete spillage, these were really good, and it uses up some stuff that I had to get used up in my freezer, so it was a perfect recipe. For tonight's dinner, I made a ranch mozzarella chicken. I am just adding some of my homemade ranch seasoning dressing there. I think I have a video that I actually made on how I make that, and if I can find it, I will leave it linked for you guys in the description. So I'm just adding 3 tablespoons of my dry ranch mix to a medium-sized bowl, and half a cup of my homemade mayonnaise. You can definitely use store-bought mayonnaise, and then half a cup of sour cream here. I added 3/4 cup of whole milk to this. Now, definitely added way too much milk to this. I actually am going to go and modify my recipe and only put half a cup because this turned out way too runny for my liking. And I actually had to go in and add about 1/4 cup more of sour cream to this in my attempt to try to get this a little bit more thickened up. Now this dressing does have to sit in the fridge for about 20 minutes just to kind of get all blended together. So I wanted to get this made a little bit in advance before I needed to actually get my supper made. So I'm just pouring this into a quart-sized jar here, and I'm just gonna let it rest in the fridge for that time while I get my chicken ready. So I am using 4 boneless, skinless chicken breasts in this. You could probably even use like a chicken thigh. That probably would work also. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking my 4 boneless, skinless breasts and I'm just lightly seasoning them on both sides with some salt and pepper, just making sure that we get them good and seasoned. And then I'm gonna put them into a greased 9x13 pan, and I'm just greasing it with a little bit of avocado oil. You can definitely use cooking spray if you have it. I'm gonna put the chicken breast into this greased casserole dish, and I don't want them to be touching each other. I want them to kind of be in there loosely so that the ranch dressing kind of can get on all of them. Also to add, I do have my oven preheating at 400 degrees. So what I'm doing right here is I'm just getting about a teaspoon of minced garlic added on top of those chicken breasts, and I'm just coating the breast with some of that dressing that we just made. I'm gonna flip the breast so that I can get both sides good and coated with that dressing. And I'm gonna add some of this Costco fresh mozzarella cheese, and I'm gonna put about 2 slices on top of each of the chicken breasts. You don't necessarily need to use a fresh mozzarella cheese. This is just what I had in my fridge and that I needed to get used up. You could probably just use like a shredded cheese if you had that available. I'm gonna cover this with some tin foil and I'm gonna put it in the oven for about 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, I'm gonna come and remove the foil and I'm gonna leave it in there for another 15 minutes just so the top can get good and cooked. What I'm doing here is just rinsing off some basil that I just went and picked from my garden and some tomatoes. And I'm just slicing the tomatoes into about a 1/4 inch thick slice. I also cut a piece of mozzarella cheese there, and I'm just gonna dice that mozzarella cheese up also. So when I cut my basil, I like to kind of like roll it together and then just make little like almost like shreds of basil into the salad. That way you're not getting a huge bite of basil. My basil that I grow tends to be pretty strong, and Steven doesn't like to get a huge leaf in there, so I try to cut it up pretty small. And once I get the basil all cut up, again, I'm just gonna get that block of cheese that I cut there and just cut that into about inch pieces. I definitely cut way too much cheese than I needed for the salad. It was a little bit cheese heavy. So once the chicken was done, I took it out of the oven and let it rest. Oh, sorry, also just adding here, I'm adding some of this Trader Joe's balsamic vinegar glaze. It is amazing. This is like one of my favorite Trader Joe's products. Anyways, so now I'm taking the chicken out of the oven and I'm just gonna let it rest there for a bit because I am going to be making another delicious, delicious side. I'm just salting some water here and adding some of my homemade gnocchi that I put into the freezer. This stuff is such a time saver. I'm so happy I made so many batches. So I'm just going to lightly boil that probably for about 5 minutes until it gets a little bit cooked. And what I'm adding here is these little cubes are just some basil and oil that I put into ice cubes last year when I had a whole bunch of extra basil in my garden, and they freeze perfect. And I'm adding a little bit of butter in there and just kind of letting that butter brown up a bit. And I'm just going to strain my gnocchi and just add it into this pan, and I just kind of let it sit for a minute and kind of get brown on that side. After a minute, I come and just flip it. You really want to kind of make sure you're moving these around because they do tend to stick to the bottom of the pan. And I'm just coming in and adding some pepper and some shredded Parmesan cheese here, just getting it good and incorporated. And I do add a little bit of salt also to this, but I wanted to wait until the very end to add the salt. Once it gets good and crispy, these things are delicious. So I'm just plating up my serving here. It turned out really, really good. I'm super happy with the way that that recipe worked. And then I'm just putting some gnocchi there and my salad. And this meal was delicious. Perfect way to end the week. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Again, some of those meals were flops and some of them were excellent. That strawberry streusel turned out so good. It is definitely a good breakfast option. But again, the only reason I actually made that is because I found those puff pastry package in my freezer. I did kind of a big clean out freezer because we are anticipating having our meat order come, and my freezer is packed, or was packed. So I kind of went through it and I found a whole bunch of things that I had to get used up, and puff pastry was one of them. So that recipe was definitely good to get that jam used up and to get that puff pastry out of the freezer. It turned out really, really good. I'm going to try to get these videos out for you at least once a week while we are in the June pantry challenge. I really, really enjoy making them for you guys because I get to show you what we make. Plus, I have been experimenting with a lot of new recipes lately, and it gives me an opportunity to show you kind of how we are trying to eat seasonal. I'm really trying to make a lot of my meals right now focused on what I'm pulling out of the garden and what my local produce stands have available. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you have a great day or night whenever you're watching this, and I will see you on the next video. Bye guys.